Morgan Neville is the Academy Award-winning director behind Man on the Run, a look behind Paul McCartney's life after the Beatles. Morgan, thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks for talking to me.
Your dad came in as a Beatles fan, and you really came in as a Wings fan. How did this kind of inspire this? And was this a passion project? And what was that moment like when Paul said yes?
Yes, it was a project I've been training for as long as I can remember. We had a jukebox in our house growing up full of Beatles 45s, but I was more of that generation that said, Paul was in a band before Wings. That the Wings were the album that were the band and the albums that were coming out when I was a little kid, just starting to buy my first albums. So I loved that. And then Paul himself, just had this idea of doing something about Wings. And when I got the call, it took me about 10 seconds to say yes, yes.
I mean, we're getting a big anniversary of Wings. We have the film, we have the album, we have a book. This is just a great moment for people to maybe come into Wings, maybe some of that younger generation, but also maybe some of those Beatles fans who maybe this is kind of one of those eras that maybe they don't quite understand.
Yeah, and in a way, I think actually Paul is kind of coming to terms with Wings too.
Yeah,
That he's realizing how great Wings were and how much love there is for Wings.
yeah,
And even in his concerts to this day, he's been adding more Wings songs. And if you see the reaction to those songs in concert, which I just did a few months ago, I know he just played in Chicago too in
yeah.
December. They stand up with anything else he ever wrote. So, I think there is just this kind of appreciation that's finally happening for Wings.
And this time after the Beatles, obviously, meeting Linda, becoming a father, moving to Scotland. I mean, how did this transform him, and what did we get to see in the film?
I mean, this is the biggest transformational period of his entire life. I mean, he is a Beatle from the time he's 16, and then suddenly it disappears when he's 27, if you can believe. He was only 27 when the Beatles break up. And suddenly, within 1 year, his band breaks up, he gets married, he has a child, and he adopts a child, Linda's older daughter. So everything changes. And then he moves to Scotland in the wake of this and becomes a farmer, essentially. Uh, so he has to ask himself all these huge questions about who am I? What do I want to do? And this is what the film gets to investigate. So I think it's actually kind of the biggest transformation is in his entire life.
I think about his career and other stars of his caliber, because you think of someone who has in a band and they might go solo. You think like a Justin Timberlake, a Bobby Brown, a Robbie Williams. Obviously Dave Grohl, starting Foo Fighters is a different thing with one band to another. But Paul kind of having this image and then starting a whole new thing. I mean, talk a little bit about just that like process for him.
I mean, I think what Paul had known was the Beatles. We were a little band and we grew and then we took over the world. And I think he thought, oh, if I start a band Wings, I can just be the bass player and we'll start at square one and it'll grow and we'll get better and better. The thing that was different was that he was Paul McCartney. And so the world wouldn't let him just be the bass player, that, and he kept trying. And you hear in the documentary from all the members of Wings, I interviewed all of them, kind of talking about Paul struggling with the fact that the world wouldn't let him just be a member of Wings, that he had to be Paul McCartney.
And then, you traveling with him, you were just in London with him for the premiere and getting to see him in concert. And obviously he knows your name, which is an amazing thing. But just his staying power and just his longevity and how fans react when they see him. I mean, what has that been like for you to witness?
I mean, I get it, and when you see him sing some of these songs, or even more personally, when I'm sitting right next to him and he's talking about, the early days of the Beatles, it feels like history. I mean, it is history, but, that he's still there, he's still alive, but he's somebody who took part in something I've been hearing about and reading about my entire life. So in that way, it's kind of extraordinary that he's still here with us and he's still making music.
He's still making music. Morgan, thank you so much for your time today. Man on the Run coming to us February 27th on Prime Video.
Great talking to you.
Thank you.